message so you can track it back to the originator, which you probably do not want to have possible, but only encrypt the full text message, but without having it explicitly signed, so it cannot be tracked back to the original author.
So is off-the-record encryption, isn't it just an addition to any public-private key encryption? Or maybe I got it wrong?
As far as I know, it's a session-based asymmetric encryption method. So you have a different set of keys for every session you use it, unlike PGP.
Okay. So, but if you want to trust your communication partner, you have at some time you have to verify. You must verify him. So, if you use off-the-record encryption, you can just be sure no one can alter the messages in your communication, but you cannot ensure that the one you are communicating to is really the one who claims it to be. So, yeah. So I think off-the-record encryption can be used and it's useful, but you always need to verify your communication partner, and that is a crucial part, or the complicated part in PGP encryption. Yes, from microphone.
Okay. Can I first, because then I'll give the microphone to you. Michi Leners from NLNet Foundation. So basically, besides XMPP, you have SIP-Simple, and it offers it's another IETF standard that offers presence, which is a feature would be very helpful to have the sort of linked-in type of updates to your friends without being centrally controlled. Basically, you own individual atomic relationships with each and everybody without it being visible to anybody else. And the second is, if there's anybody working on this in the audience, please contact me afterwards, because I work for a funding agency. We fund this type of stuff. So we fund many different projects, Mingle, Jingle, SIP-Simple client, and so on. So if people are working on this and are able to do the encryption layer on top of this, please talk to me afterwards.
Great.
Hi, I'm just curious, the title of the talk said the social semantic web. Okay, you are using Sesame, an RDF-based middleware which is used within semantic technologies, but did you use something else out of the semantic technology sector in your application? For example, did you define an ontology to reason about who is whose friend, or I don't know? I am missing the semantic part. Yeah, this is my question.
I took the semantic part a bit out of the presentation. It was the main focus of my diploma thesis, but I didn't know if all the audience is interested in it. So the semantic part was in the tagging application, yeah, so that you can link your tags, which you can treat as local concepts, to other vocabularies. So in SCOS or whatever you want, or some WordNet stuff or whatever. And so you can, on the one hand, search on a label base, or you can search for concepts or deeper concepts or whatever. So that was...
So you defined an ontology for your data, and...
Yeah, I used the tag ontology from Tom Gruber, maybe you know it. Yeah.
Okay. I'm very excited about this project, especially PDP. First I want to say Skype is not how to do it, because that has a centralized system and that's how it can be blocked. And PDP is important because it can be used for other issues like email and web pages and encryption. So it's important to get something like PDP out, because it will empower people to do a lot more stuff. And I think it's not the technical things that's stopping, it's how to use it. I was to a conference in Denmark where Arto, a social network, was saying that because they want to fight people making fake profiles of classmates and so on, they started to verify users. They wanted to use social security numbers, which of course is extremely bad from a privacy issue. And we also have some friend verification where can you verify your friends. And PDP is just a much better way of doing that in a secure and better way. So I think that's great.
Sorry, I wasn't able to get the key idea of your comment. It was a bit too...
I just want to comment that I think PTP is important, and I think it's important to have a way of feeling that the users get some value out of it. That you get value out of verifying your friend. You know, it's a social thing that you want to have many friends, and you should be able to sell the network with Web of Trust as a good thing in itself and a motivation for people to use it. And I think that could really work.
Okay, sorry. Sorry, I didn't. Was it a question or? I'm sorry, it was very difficult to hear it. Sorry. Okay, okay. Other questions?
Sorry. So the one hurdle to adoption of this stuff that seems obvious to me is the persistence problem that you sort of mentioned briefly, that what happens when people go offline, their data is gone. So are you aware of any technologies, any work being done that could be used to overcome that, for example, by defining a way for caching data somewhere in the cloud for, say, a limited amount of time and possibly with encryption wrapped around it, which means that the person doing the caching doesn't necessarily have access to the content?
Yes, there are two ideas. One is some kind of data store where you can put encrypted packets and give your friends a key to it. Or another option is to let your friends cache your data which they retrieved before or however. You will always have the problem of versioning conflicts or whatever which you have to deal with. And I stopped at that point because I think that's something which has to be solved more deeper in the semantic layer, in the semantic web layer, so versioning of RDF triples or whatever. And for my diploma thesis, that was simply too much. And so I stopped at the caching stuff. And yeah, it's for later. More? Yeah?
I think this problem is actually addressed by DHTs. So if you would take a look into Kademlia or Pastry, for example, you will already find applications that will give you distributed storage. And the next step to implement a secure distributed storage is not that difficult if you're using some encryption scheme, which is able to give each friend the key, but not giving the key to the public. So maybe the DHT approach or the real peer-to-peer approach will solve not only the problem of connecting between users, but also the storage problem.
Yeah, then you have the problem if you can, for example, sign only the whole block of information. So you can, if you cache a whole block of information for your friend, you can only give out the whole block, but not parts of it. Maybe not a problem, maybe a problem. You have to think about it.
Yeah.
Microphones.
Me?
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
To me, for social networks, one important thing is to reach a critical mass to get enough information. For example, if you think of things, project like Last.fm, you can participately create an interesting database, but you can link all the information to the people. And I'm wondering to which extent it would be possible to use your scheme to try to generate something big like this, because if you're only using friends or friend of a friend, you're getting stuck and you can't reach enough information to get this critical mass.
Okay, you mean if I use the application, it's difficult to get to all other information because I can only go from friends or friends to friends or friends?
Yeah.
Okay. I did some research. You know the small world phenomenon? So on Facebook, someone calculated that most people are only 5 to 8 steps away. So I think from a friend-to-friend perspective, it would be possible but costly to reach nearly all information available with this approach.
But it definitely needs some caching on, yeah.
Sure, yeah. So you don't want to send one query to the whole network.
I've got a comment to what you just said about signing the whole block of information. You can easily solve that problem with hash trees. So you have a tree where you have several smaller blocks which are signed, and you sign the hashes of those hashes, and then you only have one central hash that you sign, and you don't have to hand out the whole information.
Okay.
And I also think that DHTs are exactly what you're looking for the persistence part.
Yeah, different suggestion about the caching part, because I think this is actually solved in XMPP, because XMPP has a server-side technology that's called PubSub, and it's basically a storage of data that you can subscribe to. So PubSub is publish and subscribe, and one person can publish data, and everybody else can say, everybody who's your friend, or you can whitelist them, or whatever, can say, I want that data. So it's stored on the server, and you could, if you want, also encrypt it, but basically you can fairly granularly say only my friends or only the people in my roster can access this data, or people on the whitelist can access this data. And this also works if you're offline, so that would probably solve that.
Okay.
Did you took a look at some mostly double-space-based solutions out of the semantic community? They are not very useful, but I think they maybe deliver some ideas for, at least for the data delivery approach or the data propagation approach.
What was the name? Sorry.
In the semantic community, there are various space-based, double space-based projects in development which partly address the problems you have. For example, which are very similar to what you have written, but do not use own protocols to connect the peers. They use existing peer-to-peer technology.
Okay.
If you are interested, I can tell you some of the project.
So more questions, remarks? Okay, then I want to thank you for... Oh, sorry.
I'm not sure if your approach is in the same league as the existing social networks, because you have kind of an exclusive approach. People have to know maybe the unique identifier of someone who they want to become friends with, and the traditional approach to social networks is more like open and inclusive. You get to know people on Last.fm because they share the musical taste. And you cannot do that with your approach. So that may be a limit to the appeal your approach has. Maybe the nerd and hacker type might like that, because you have a real friends network with people you really know. But what social networks are about is not getting in contact with people you really know in real life, but to broaden your friendship. And I'm not sure how your scheme applies to that.
Yeah, it wouldn't apply to maybe MySpace or whatever, something different, but this content sharing stuff like Delicious or maybe Bibsonomy, which focus more on research papers or whatever, I think in this part it's interesting to know what your friends have, what content your friends provide and so on. And maybe it's possible to implement a MySpace-like social network based on XMPP, I'm not sure. Yeah, but it's a hard way to go, it's a long way to really implement a fancy social network.